1985, Villanova shocks the world by upsetting Georgetown.
1996, Princeton Tigers upsets UCLA Bruins.
In 1997, Coppin State upsets South Carolina.
2018, the first ever number 16 seed UMBC upsets number 1 University of Virginia.
Everyone loves a great underdog story, the huge upsets, David beating Goliath. But what happens when there are no upsets? When the only people you get to see and hear from are famous people, the superstars, the head coaches, the celebrities. Are their stories more important? Do they matter more? Everyone puts in the same work, the same time, the same sweat. So who hears their stories? From the walk-ons, the assistant coaches, the role players, the 10th man off the bench. Everyone has a story and everyone has a voice. And on this podcast, you will meet these people, you will hear their stories in their own voices.
This is Underrated.
Welcome to Underrated Season 2, Episode 2. I am your host, Ray Hutter, along with my very athletic, 6'4", tons of fun co-host, David Capers.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate that.
And before we get into some of the basic housekeeping stuff, I do want to just come out and say that last Saturday, actually 2 days ago, I have to give it up to Dave because we always talk about going back and forth about who had the better day. And Dave officially embarrassed me. And it started with a block shot in the corner that I didn't think he thought I was going to shoot the three, and I must be so slow that by the time I shot the ball, he blocked it. I started laughing because I was like, damn, like that was quick. And then it followed up by a series of turnover, legitimately tried to cross over, tripped on my own feet, tripped on the ball, rolled over, and had to pass the ball. And then I think I also missed another shot. I did hit 1-3 in your face.
You did.
And it was really good. I should have called
did.
the timeout and left the gym.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And so, Kate, congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, I appreciate it. And I'm man enough to say that
Oh, did you tell him how that game ended, though?
You hit a shot.
No.
No?
I blocked your shot first. Then I came down and hit the shot.
Yeah, well, anyway, let's get back to the housekeeping items. But you know, there's always this coming Saturday. So
Yes.
at our next session, you'll see that, you know, maybe I will have got that one weekend in the year that I always talk about where I dominate. But anyway, welcome to our episode, season 2, episode 2. And we have a great guest. It's going to be a little different than what you're used to seeing, but we're looking forward to it. So remember, please subscribe, like, share. Let's get it out there. We're having a great time doing this, and we're looking forward to this session here. And so just real quick, from a sponsor perspective, shout out to Chile Shades. You'll see the link that goes up there. And our guest will be going home with a pair at the end, so we appreciate that. Also, EchoFlow Studios, you know, and that was I missed that in last episode. So EchoFlow Studios. So if you want a podcast, you want to use the studio, you can reach out to us, and we'll put the links up there how you reach us so that you can utilize this wonderful studio for anything that you want. And then lastly, I mentioned last week our new sponsor, Tommy Copper. They are the original copper-infused athletic apparel for braces, knee braces, sleeves, you know, keep your posture up. I have horrible posture, so, you know, when I use that. We're also going to have some products that we'll be showing, and we're just going to continue to build that relationship. But it's a great company run by great people, and we're looking forward to expanding our relationship with them. So, and Kate, you want to just talk about, because, I mean, you're old, and, you know.
Yeah, I'm old, so.
You might have actually were using that. Maybe I should use that stuff more.
No, I love the Tommy Copper stuff. You know, we know one of the guys who works there, and he's the one who hooked us up with this, and really appreciate you. But no, the gear is great because it has this compression on your knees where it's almost like you're wearing a knee brace on top of a compression like pants. So I love them just because, again, my knees stay warm, my arms stay nice and lubricated, so that's way when I'm going up and I can block shots, you know, it ain't no thing.
Well, this is going to be a long episode. All right, well, you know, let's move on to the next topic here. So I have the privilege of introducing a very special guest, Dr. And I'm going to apologize in advance because I wrote it down. I'm making notes. I'm using like hooked on phonics and you know, all that other kind of stuff. So Dr. Serene Irsheid-Puentes. Irsheid-Puentes.
You got it. Look at that.
All right. Yeah. Well, it only took 45 minutes. So, may we call you Doctor Serene? What do you want to be
Serene
called?
is fine.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Serene, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
When you hang out with Dave and I, it's a lot of fun, hopefully. But also, usually careers skyrocket. So who knows what's going to happen to
after this.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
So you come back.
Yeah, you come back and just remember when I knew you guys when. But no, go ahead and give us a little background of who you are, what you're doing today, and how you came into working with mental health and athletics.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I wear many, many hats. First and foremost, I'm a mental health therapist. So I'm a social worker. I'm also a professor at New York University. I'm a researcher. I'm a scientist. I'm a critical race scholar. And my work, my expertise looks at the intersection of structural violence and mental health and trauma. And the school-prison nexus. So I know I said a lot of words there, right? But probably the viewers are like, what is she talking about? So I can break it down really fast. So the school-prison nexus, typically people are familiar with the school-to-prison pipeline. And the school-to-prison pipeline, as we know it, are students who get suspended, get kicked out of school. They end up, some of them end up in the prison system, in the juvenile legal system. And that's traditionally called the school-to-prison pipeline. But scholars, as myself, we call it the school-prison nexus because we understand that the way the logics and the punitive discipline that happens in schools, they function parallel to the school prison, to the carceral system, right? So, for instance, the punitive discipline, suspension, removing them from the classroom, having to go through metal detectors. There's so many parallels that we see them in the school system. And so typically people look at the school prison nexus from the individual level, right? They'll say, well, how do we get these kids to stay in school? How do we get these kids to change their behaviors, right? So it's really from an individual lens. And what my work does is look at that from a structural, so I said structural violence, so from a structural perspective, where structural violence is really the lack of access to resources and opportunities to those communities and to those kids. And the reason it's a structural narrative there is because our students that are disproportionately impacted by the school-prison nexus happen to be disproportionately Black and brown young people, right? So it's not a story of culture, it's not a story of individual behavior, but given the history of this country, it's a story of systems and structures and having access to resources. So as a researcher, that's what I do. I center the structural harm that our young people experience. And I look at mental health also from a structural perspective. So I think of trauma and mental health from a structural perspective. If a young person is experiencing anxiety, for instance, we might say, okay, they're experiencing anxiety. A clinician or a psychiatrist might prescribe something for anxiety, right? And so from a structural perspective, I would say, well, what are the structural things that this young person has to navigate? Maybe it's the ICE raids that are happening, right? Maybe it's the policing, the surveillance. So that becomes, so it's not just, it's a way to not pathologize what the young people are going through, but really put a structural lens and understand how are we diagnosing and assessing and providing proper treatment for these things so that we're not misdiagnosing and we're not only focusing on the individual. So that's what I do research-wise and clinically. I'm also, I told you I wear many hats.
Yes. Well, you're also the smartest person in the room right now.
No, not at all.
So this is going to be good.
Not at all. I'm also the director of mental health for Klinic Kids, which is, we'll talk about it definitely in the podcast. And for those that don't know, Klinic Kids is a basketball mental health program, so we'll talk a little bit more about it. And I'm also the CEO of Serenity LCSW, PLLC, which is where we offer also individual therapy and consulting around some of the things that I told you I do around education and school prison nexus and structural trauma and so on.
So what is your audience, or I don't know if audience is the right word, but the kids that you work in, is there like a certain grade level or age level that you go up to? Do you do adults as well, or so it's
I do
full spectrum?
Full spectrum, because I've had experience with all. My those that I've had the most experience with, I would say, are high schoolers, in like the school setting, but I do therapy with all, like the younger, all the way to young adults. I do right now with college kids as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about the college kids at some point. But I do therapy with the college kids because there's so much that we're seeing around mental health and anxiety, especially post-COVID.
Yeah.
So with the kids that you're dealing with, what is, I guess, one of the main things that you come across a lot? Like what's a common factor like dealing with these kids in trauma?
Yeah. Oh man. So, for the young adults, like those in college, I'll say, what I see a lot is anxiety. What I see a lot is, and this is young adults, high school, middle school, elementary, and us. We're all guilty, and maybe some people are going to feel this when I say it. Our narrative, our internalized narrative, right? And this is so important to think about because we're with ourselves 24 hours a day. Yes. We are our own best friends, right? Like who talks to us more than us? We're in our heads all the time, right? And so what we say to ourselves really matters. And we learn early on that we are our worst critics. We are our worst critics. We are really hard on ourselves. And when we don't do something, or we're afraid, we're anxious, we're worried, right? And we're like, oh my God, I'm not going to do well, or I'm not enough, or I'm whatever narrative it is, we take it and we internalize it, and now it becomes ours. And it creates a lot of mental health challenges for us. So all ages do this, including adults, right? And so it's really important to pay attention to how we're talking to ourselves, what we're saying to ourselves, and how do we take control of that narrative so we're not the ones feeding our mental health, right?
Yeah, I could have used you last Saturday. Thanks, Dave.
You up?
And we're not, just so we're clear, we're going to have fun, but we're not making light of this subject. I just want everybody to understand we take this very serious as well. But of course, we will be who we are.
Yeah.
You have to.
Right.
You have to be find joy and moments of happiness because that's part of mental health.
Right.
That's part of, it's not that we're not taking it seriously. It's part of our mental health because if not, we're going to stay serious all day. And then laughing and finding joy. I don't know if you're familiar with endorphins, but yeah, they're a natural chemical that our brain releases. And so even laughter, I love going to comedy shows. And so laughter, it releases these natural endorphins and it helps boost our mood.
Yeah, very important. So talk about a little bit, how did you get involved with Klinic Kids or sports in general?
Yeah. So actually, it's so funny. When I was working in the schools in Harlem, I worked there for some years. Before Klinic Kids was created, I was finding ways to get creative with our students. And I had the high schoolers, right? And high schoolers, sometimes they're a little too cool to go see the social worker to get pulled out, right? Yeah. And they're like, especially I had one student in particular I'm thinking about, he was on the basketball team. And he would be like, no, I'm not going to go see a social worker, right? Like the students are going to say, hi, you have a social worker, right? And so I'm like, okay, one thing that I know that's super important is building rapport, building trust with our kids, right? With anyone, but really with our kids. And I got creative with him and I said, well, what does he like? What is he into? He's into basketball. He's on the team. He enjoys going to the gym. And so on his IEP, which is an individualized education plan, had decision making. And I said, okay, I can teach him some of these skills by incorporating it with what he likes, right, with basketball. And so we would go down to the gym. I was like, hey, we're going down to the gym. And he's like, are you serious, Miss Sireen? And I was like, yeah, we're going down to the gym. And every time I'm going to teach you these strategies. I'm going to teach you what this means, like goal setting, decision making. And every time you get something right, I'm going to ask you a question. And you get to shoot around. And we're playing all around the world. We're playing 21. We're playing horse, right? All these different things with him. And when I tell you, he was able to really grasp the concepts and then provide like his own lived experience and like apply it to it, he got so good because he really wanted to shoot around. He really wanted to shoot the ball. And so I was like, okay, this is great, right? And so, and I didn't just do it with sports or basketball. Like if I had students that were into music or drama, we would do something in the office around that. Sometimes we would just play cards, and that would be a way to create a safe place and safe space to make sure that my students are feeling vulnerable and being able to like engage and have these conversations, to the point where one time my student was like, Miss Sireen, I need you. And I was like, oh, do you need to go to the gym? And he was like, no, I just need you, And I was like, oh, okay. So like that tells me like you get to build those relationships, but you don't have to do the traditional like talk therapy. You can be creative, especially if there's performance involved, if there's competition involved, right? You can use it in ways to build on that.
Yeah, it's a very good point, because I have 3 boys. They're 19, 23, and almost 30. And it's funny because they excel at stuff they like to do.
Yep. See?
But I can't get them to do a damn thing that they don't like to do. But it's true. But like listening to you just say that, in my head, the wheels are turning, and I'm like, all right, I've tried this, I've tried that, and they're always great at the stuff that they like to do. Yeah. But it's tough when they don't like to do it, or if they do it, it's like a half-ass effort. It's like just to check the box and move on.
Yeah.
So it's important that you make that connection. And before we started recording, you and I were just talking about like the connection. It's important, and we'll get into that a little deeper, I think. And so, how did Klinic Kids come about then?
Yeah, I'll tell you now, but I wanted to respond to what you just said. I love that you said that, and so that's why it's so important. It's beyond therapy, right? Like just find whatever they enjoy to do, and use that to build and support whatever it is that you want them to do, right? And find ways to be creative so that it's fun versus like no one wants to feel like it's work, right? It's like, okay, we'll have fun, do it, and this we're gonna combine.
Other than it's just like dad's telling me to do this.
Yeah. No one wants to hear that, right? Like dad's telling me to do this.
Right.
Okay, so your question, how did I get involved with Klinic Kids?
Yeah, just how did that, and we'll move around, but just how did that connection start?
Yeah. So Kashif Hamid is the founder and CEO of Klinic Kids, and he was one of the principals in the middle school at the school that I worked in Harlem. I was at the high school and he was at the middle school. And so that's how our connection was from the school. But, as a principal, he knew how important mental health was. Like crises, all the students that were considered high risk of suspension, and like all the kids that would be in his office, right? We knew that there was some behavioral health going on there. And so that was beautiful for him to experience, to know, okay, this is really important for our kids. And I had left to get my PhD after I was working there, but I was still in contact with Cash. And as I was coming back to do my postdoc at NYU Steinhardt, we connected, and he told me about Klinic Kids, and he said, oh, I have this idea. I want to engage sports with mental health. And I was like, sign me up. Yes. Because I know, first of all, I was doing it with one kid. To do it with a whole group of kids that some have never even touched a basketball. So it's not even it doesn't even have to be something they're good at. But you can reach so many more students. And I know how important getting access to mental health skills are, and teaching our kids in a way that is unique, in a way that expands one-on-one therapy. I said, absolutely. This is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I can just attest from, when Serene is at the camps and stuff, and just the mental health that she gives the kids, it's like also, it translates to all the trainers as well, right? Because we always have our sessions where we're in our circle, and then everybody's talking about, the stuff that affects them. And one thing that Cash told me that it kind of resonated, he was like, how are you going to get these kids right if you're not right yourself? Correct. So at the end of the day, like, I love Klinic Kids just for that, because it's got me to open up and be a little bit more vocal, and just to kind of, one thing I really love about Klinic Kids is the positive affirmations. I use it all day, and I still use it to this day. And I probably would have never done it, or probably wouldn't have never thought it was important to me until I came across you and Klinic Kids and how you guys have implemented it with all the kids. So I definitely want to give you props and kudos for that,
thank
because
you.
I definitely use it every day. Like literally before I go into an appointment, I'm telling myself, yo, you're gonna sell this, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you're this and you're that, and it works because it
works.
helps my little inner self to say, yo, you can do this.
It works.
Word.
I'm glad you said that, because you can, the same way that the positive affirmations work, the opposite, and
Yeah.
I've said this before, the opposite work, right? When you're telling yourself negative things, even if they're not true, even if you say, I'm not enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I can't do this, or I can't figure it out, when you're saying these negative things to yourself, the brain is saying it and the body feels it. Right? Even if it's true, if it's not true, it believes it. And so now we're talking about mental health, anxiety, and now you're going into a meeting, you're going into something, and you're like, I can't do it. I don't know why I'm breathing so hard. Right? It's because we've set up and trained our body to do that. So the opposite is true. If you train yourself to say, I can do it, I am smart enough, I am good enough, I am worthy, I can do these things, your body will feel it, and you're like, okay, I can do this. And it really works. It's so simple. It's free and it's simple.
And then it's the aura that you give off too, right? Because people can feel when you're feeling a certain way, or you're thinking something. They can kind of feel that, like, so it definitely works.
Yeah.
Well, and my experience has also been like with coaching kids or whatever. They only remember the negative stuff. They are for whatever reason, they don't remember when you like told them how great they were, or they did a great job. They just remember like you yelled at me and you told me I was this or I was that, or I wasn't hustling, or and it's a weird thing, and it's the same way. And this may be totally like not on topic, but it's also like my kids, and just in general, they always would say, like, when they got an A in school, they're like, I got an A. But if they failed or they got a bad grade, oh, the teacher gave me a D, or the teacher gave me a C. But like if it was an A, oh, I did that. But if they got a C, the teacher gave me a C. They don't like me. I'm sitting in the back of the room or whatever. But you just see how many things are connected to like just the positivity or just their image. And to your point or earlier, we spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with just ourselves.
Yes.
So if you're killing yourself inside, it's going to show.
Yeah. And that's so funny, because I like that your kids do that, actually, because some people might disagree, but that's kind of a protective mechanism, because someone could easily say, I got an F and there's something wrong with me, and they internalize it, and they're using it as like the teacher. We need a balance, right? but it's showing that they're like trying to protect themselves versus like internalize that F of like But how can we move away from that F? Yes. And then the other thing, as adults, think about, when they say like you'll get feedback at your job or wherever you are, and they'll tell you these are all the things you're doing well, and these are the areas where you're not. And people tend to hold on, even as adults, they tend to hold on to that critique. Right? You sleep on that critique, you think about that critique, you're like, why did they give me that critique? So as adults, we do it too. We kind of hold on to that one thing because we want to naturally be liked, or we naturally want to like feel better, do better, right? And we hold on, we give it so much weight and so much energy, versus like, look at all the great things I did, and I can do better. I can do better in this area. That's fine.
That's a very good point, because I find myself doing that.
No, we all do.
Like out of the 100 things or whatever, they're like, damn, how do you pick that one? That one thing, and then it just eats at you for the whole rest of the day.
Exactly.
Our own worst critics.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I guess one of the things we were talking about before we came on is just like you were talking about making that connection. It's really hard though. How does one like build that trust to like really where somebody's actually going to open up and like, tell the truth, or not make up stories or tell you what you want to hear because they just want to get out of the session or whatever the case may be. Like, how do you build that trust? And I know you talked about making connections with the kids, but how do you build that trust to where they feel like they can tell you anything?
Yeah. So I can answer that both for Klinic Kids and in therapy. So in therapy, it's really important to build relationship. Now, it's going to look different with kids. It's going to look different in schools, right? We're taught as clinicians, whoever's watching this as a clinician, just know I push against a lot of stuff that I teach my students. Like I try to have them think outside the box in the way we're traditionally taught. So like they say, you're not allowed to share much about yourself, right? If you're working with kids, especially in high school, middle school, they're like, Miss Sireen, you got a boyfriend? Miss Sireen, you have, they want to know, right? And so you have to pick and choose, like, you're asking the kids to tell you so much about themselves, and then you can't tell them anything about you, right? That's not going to build trust. That's not going to build relationship, right? And so you have to be open and flexible, especially with kids. In the therapy session itself, right? It's hard, especially for people that haven't been to therapy before. You're kind of like, I don't know if I should trust you. I don't know how much I can tell you. Right. The good thing about the dynamic in therapy is that everything stays confidential between the two of you. So you can share what you want. You don't have to share whatever you don't want to share. And I check in with my clients a lot. And I'll say, like, I want to check in, even in the beginning, like, I want to make sure we're a good fit, that you feel like we're a good fit. I don't ever want you to feel like you have to stay in a situation if you're not comfortable. And then I check in throughout sessions and say, how are we? What are the goals that we're reaching? Do you feel like you're feeling an effect? Do you feel like you're growing? Do you feel like you're stuck in place? Is there anything that we want to revisit, right? So you want to continue to check in with them. And then I have a special, like, unique vibe to myself, like, within therapy, where I'm not like this serious, like, therapist, right? And so, and I can kind of gauge, like, if there's a client that's like more serious versus a client that's like more, I can joke around with them more. And so I open myself up to that. And like, I'll joke around with my clients and like have them feel comfortable. So that's one way that I'll do it in therapy. With Klinic Kids, and you can speak, I'm sure you can speak a little bit about this as one of the coaches, but with our kids, they don't know us when they first come in. Who are all these people? Right. You're asking us to do what now? You're asking us to learn how to play basketball. You're asking us to sit in a circle and talk about times that we're angry and scared and have fear, right? The thing, in my opinion, that makes our kids so vulnerable is that us as adults, we do it first. Right. Mm-hmm. We sit in circles and we share with them times that we felt scared, times that we felt fearful, times that we felt anxious or stressed, and times that we're able...
Live TV.
It's okay. Times that we used a strategy when we were upset, times that we didn't use a strategy and we should have, right? And allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And now the kids are like, oh, we got these adults here, adults that look like us, that are sitting on the floor with us, allowing themselves to be vulnerable, and it's okay. And so now when they go around the room, they're like, oh yeah, this is what happened, this is how I'm feeling. And we've gotten really deep with our students in ways where they've had loss. They have a lot of loss, family, parents, a lot of loss, a lot of hardships, right? And they'll share it with us, right? And then some of the coaches are like, I've had that experience too. I know what that's like, right? And it just really builds that trust and that relationship with our kids so that when by the eighth week, we feel like family, right? So.
No, definitely. I've gotten a lot of... I've formed a lot of relationships with a lot of kids, especially like we were going to Syracuse because it has one of the highest poverty rates for kids, which I had no idea of until I got there, and I saw how bad it really was. But then again, for you to go into the circle and then ask these kids to share what's going on in their homes and then you don't share what's going on in your homes, I don't personally think that's right. I'm a coach, right? So the one thing that I do when I coach is I actually get out on the court and I show my guys, so this way it's not as though, you know how it is when you're playing and you're coaching, you take instructions from somebody who who already done it and who has been through it, right? It's hard to take instructions from somebody who's just telling you what to do and you be like, you ain't never do that before. And I'm like, bro, I'm out here doing it with you. So there's nothing you can tell me that I haven't experienced, or even for these kids to let them know that, look, we're dealing with loss just like you're dealing with loss. When I was growing up, I didn't have sneakers just like you didn't have sneakers, right? So it's good to show them that there is some similarities and that there is there is light at the end of that tunnel, right? Because we're all professionals. We're trying to show them that, look, this is where we started just like you, and you can end up where we're at or even better than us. And the goal is to get better than us, right? Just like our kids. We want them to always do better than our predecessors. So
Yeah. I love that. And consistency.
Right. Yeah.
We show up every week, no matter our day, no matter our week, no matter what. We show up and we're consistent with our kids, and they see us once a week there, and they're like, there they go. That's our team. That's what we're looking forward to. They're looking forward to it. And the consistency really really build safety and trust.
Yeah, and I think that's important, just showing up all the time, because that's how you build trust, right? They're like, oh yeah, they're going to be back next week, so it's not one of these things where they show up and then you don't see the person for like 8 months, and then they're like, well, where were you when I was going through some of that? Yeah, I get it. And so we had Cash on here, and he was telling us his story, and one of the things that he pointed out was, is that a lot of times when you go get therapy, it's outside of the court, so to speak, right? It's outside the lines of what you like to do. So you're going into seeing somebody that you have no rapport with, or maybe, you're being forced to go. And what Cash said, like, once he realized, like, about bringing it into, people that get sports, they understand the drive of an athlete, or even non-athlete who's just trying to pick up the game and wants to do something positive. And since he said that, I was like, wow, that makes total sense to me. Is like incorporating it into something that somebody likes, because that's the connection. And from there, you just build that relationship and you build that trust, and then you get the power of that coming together, and you're feeling like everything's inclusive, instead of like, oh, I got something here, I got something here, I got something here, and it's just all disjointed.
Yeah, and in addition to that, we're building trust, we're building relationships, we're building rapport, right? But also, what the kids don't realize, there's so much stereotypes and taboo around mental health. We know that, right?
Yeah.
And what the kids don't realize is by week 8, they're walking out of this program, they're graduating this program, and they've learned 7 official skills that I teach in my own therapy. Right? And not just 1 or 2 kids. Like, we have 75 students in each session. And we've done how many sessions, right? We've done so many. Thousands and thousands. Yeah, hundreds and thousands of kids. Right? And so now we have thousands and thousands of kids who know how to do have therapeutic skills that they otherwise would have never gotten if they never went to therapy, or if they've never went to a social worker, if they've never went to, Klinic Kids, right? And so I'm very intentional in choosing and identifying the kinds of therapy that we focus on, or skills, I should say. The therapeutic skills that they learn, very intentional. I say, okay, what do I see in my own practice that a lot of our students, that our young people need, and how do I make sure that we incorporate it in Klinic Kids? So that's why these are the positive affirmations. We talk about the internalized thoughts. We talk about the negative thoughts in our mind. We talk about identifying them, challenging them, and reframing them. This is like, we can do it with the younger. We do it with the elementary school kids. 3rd graders can do it with us, right? So now they're learning things that I see are so prevalent in my practice that comes up. 3rd graders are starting to learn how to do this, so that by the time they get to high school and college, they're like, oh, I know how to do this already, right? They're going to be way ahead of us, which is what we want.
Exactly.
Because we just started to learn some of this stuff as adults. But 3rd grade, I'm so confident that by the time they become our age, it's going to be like water for them. It's natural.
Right. So just to build off of that, so it's 8 weeks to program. Do you pick certain topics each week that you're going to cover in between the basketball skills? Like, who determines that? Do you guys just do it as a group? And just walk us through, what are the 8 weeks that you cover and the skills that you teach them?
Yeah. So we do it together, myself and Cash, and we talk about like the curriculum and what we want to focus on. And so we have the 8 weeks. We're going to work on doing another, like, if there's any schools that want to do further, like another 8 weeks, right? Then we would do like a part 2 of it. But in the 8 weeks, we usually start with goal setting. And we want them to identify goals for themselves, short goals, small goals, right? And we tend to have them fill out, sometimes we have them have like little journals, but we have them fill out surveys in the beginning to remember the surveys, right? We have them fill out surveys to see where they're at. Right? The pre-surveys to say, okay, this is like, are you familiar with these skills? Have you ever heard of challenging negative thoughts? Have you ever heard of pace breathing? Have you ever heard of all these skills that we teach them throughout? So they'll do the survey, then we do the goal setting with them. And then the second session, we do the pace breathing. And that's the part where we focus on if you've ever felt anxious, if you've ever felt nervous or angry, right? And then I have them like tap in. It's like paying attention to your body, right? And saying, tap into your body and say, what do you feel in your body when you're stressed or you're mad, right? To have them to start to realize it, because we get mad. We go from 0 to 100. We don't know what's happening with our body. We don't even realize we have lost control.
Right.
Having them be aware of that. And so they're saying, okay, I feel tension. I feel tightness. I feel like my heart going like this, beating a mile a minute. Right? So we have them identify those things and then teach them a strategy in response to it and say, okay, well, let's teach you a practice. There are a million ways to breathe.
Right.
But we start small with them. We do small breaths with them, so they can practice how to release that in that moment if they need to do it in school, if they need to, right? And the coaches are sitting right there with them.
Yes.
On the floor doing pace breathing with them.
Right.
Right? And it normalizes that, right? It's not like I'm too cool for this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, you got this 6'8" foot
Right.
man over here that looks like me and he's doing it, so why wouldn't I not do it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you talk about that a lot, pace breathing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I understand, like, the, you know, meditation, breathing. Everybody has a different way, like, different groups do different types of breathing. But you always refer to that. Like, yeah, before I knew pace breathing, you know, you had trouble at times and you had to learn how to do it, and then he would say the same thing. I'm like sitting on the court and all of a sudden I find myself like following it all, breathing in through the nose, hold it out through the mouth.
Yes, I love it.
Hey, I
Makes
do it
me happy.
all the time. I'm telling you, like, even like for free throws, even when I'm going into an appointment, even if I'm getting into an argument with somebody, you know, whatever it is, like, I literally now I say, you know what, let me just take my breathing skills that I learned with Serene in the Klinic Kids, and I'll literally sit there and I'll
hold.
and then I feel a little bit better, right? It doesn't always work, but it gets me in that right frame of mind. Okay, let's
be mindful.
Yeah, let's be mindful and let's start thinking about positive thoughts, right? But yeah, it definitely puts me in my place because it works. And I'm one that I always talk to myself. Like I'll be in the car and I'll have a conversation for like an hour, literally. And I'm talking like, why'd you do this? Like I'll be going back to last Saturday. You might have hit me, and I'm like, well, I'll let Ray do this to me. I can't believe I did that. Like, hey, that ain't happening next week.
Well, you know, it's funny you bring that up because I was not going to bring that up, but it's funny you bring that up because there's a few times where I go and I score on him, and like all of a sudden, like he'll take a 30-second timeout and he'll walk to the corner and he starts doing this pace breathing. And at first I thought it was just like, you know, maybe he's like hurt, but like, you know, so I'm like, Dave, you okay? And he's like, give me 30 seconds. And then he's just breathing, and I'm like, all right, you know, and I'm like, wow. So now I know. I feel so much better. I was really worried, which is why I didn't play well last Saturday.
It's the pace breathing.
He's been doing so much damn pace breathing that I just was like, I can't anymore. So block my shot, Dave. I'm gonna shoot. But now
I love
know.
this. We'll teach you pace breathing after so you can compete with him.
I could have used some last week. And when I was driving home for the 35 minutes, I was like, how the hell did you think you were going to get that shot off? Like, what were you thinking? And the crossover, you look like a fool. You know?
I love this. I love this story. But yeah, so that's one example. And then we do mindfulness, we do meditation, we do the reframing the negative thoughts, positive affirmations, right? So I pull from all different practices, cognitive behavioral therapy, I pull from dialectical behavioral therapy, I even pull from the eye movement desensitization, reprocessing therapy, which really taps into like the negative, how negative memories are stored in our mind, in our memories, and the negative emotions and feelings and narratives that are attached to it. So like we do some of that. So yeah, we just pull and we do it, and then we incorporate it in the practice. So like for instance, the pace breathing that we just talked about, after they learn how to do it, we practice it in small groups, then we practice it in a larger group, and then they get a chance to practice it during free throw shots. And whoever makes the free throw shots gets a chance to win like a t-shirt or a hoodie or something of that. But then we have everyone staring at you. One kid gets picked from each group, and everyone's staring at them, and they're nervous, and they'll say, like, Cash will tell them, like, are you nervous? And they're like, yes, I'm nervous. You know, it's like, this is perfect, because in real life, you're going to have thousands of people staring at you, and you have to make this free throw shot. Your team is depending on you. You're nervous. Calm yourself down and take that shot, right? So we try to put it in practice.
I know a little bit of something about that.
I was gonna bring that up. I was like, I mean, I'm sure, we have the video. It didn't look like you were doing any pace breathing.
No,
but you did bang those 3 foul shots.
I was shitting my pants.
So has he told you the story? I'm sure he has because he's very egocentric.
No, actually he hasn't.
I don't tell nobody the story, Ray.
Well, it's a funny thing. So this came about. This whole podcast came about kind of like a joke. Because we have a text string with all the guys that we play basketball with, and somebody, one of our friends, Pepe, sent out a text message with a video of Dave 25 years ago in the NCAA tournament, where he was in the first overtime against Kentucky, and he played at St. Bonaventure, and there was like 0.6 seconds left on the clock.
0.3.
Point three.
Sorry.
Get it right.
Yeah,
Get it right. Point
All
three.
right, hold on, let me breathe. But he had to go and hit 3 foul shots to send it into a second overtime.
Wow.
And this is this is big time on TV, CBS, probably millions of people watching on TV, thousands in the arena, and he hit all 3. And they got into a second overtime.
Wow.
But we did this as a joke for like something I was doing during the NCAA tournament. And all of a sudden, we got such great response from that. I was like, we could do something with this. And then we got Juan involved, and it all went to hell for a while. But I'm kidding, Juan. I'm kidding. But we all, it just started. But it really started from those 3 foul shots and that story that he. Yeah. And I've known him for many, many years and never knew that story. So once our friend threw it out there, he thought he was going to embarrass Dave. Dave looks the same exact that he did on TV. I mean, the guy doesn't age.
Oh, I need my cornrows, right?
But he hit those 3s, and it was like, wow. And so, but to your point, like, how many times, like in the industry I'm in, like you go into meetings with people and you're terrified. You have to do presentations in front of 500 people and their leaders, and you don't want to screw up. And so you sit there and you're like, have to prepare yourself. Like, how am I going to get through this? And you may not sleep for a few days leading into it, and you feel your heart racing as you're speaking, and you're like, I'm going to have a heart attack. Like, so
your heart's going to come out of your chest.
Yeah. And so it's great that you're teaching kids at such a young level, because the world only is going to have more and more adversity, more and more conflict, and unfortunately, our kids, especially with COVID, we talk about a lot of that because of how it impacted basketball, high school, college basketball, but our kids, they're going through a lot, and having experts like you guys participating and helping and connecting it to part of their lives that they like. Definitely, hopefully, will change them into the future and let them get through some of these tough times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I think also one of the things that, you had talked about, like the stereotypes or the stigma of therapy, and, we talked a little bit before we came on, and, I'll be the first one to say, like, I was like, yeah, I don't know, therapy doesn't work for me, like I'm like that guy, like, yeah, I'm just going to run through the wall 8,000 times, and eventually the wall's going to get out of the way, and I'll be fine, but it's one of those things where the good thing is, and we talked about it a little bit, but like a lot of pro athletes or high profile people now are coming out and speaking about mental health and the importance of it, and even stepping away from their professions.
Yeah.
You could look at Olympic athletes, professional basketball players, tennis players. They're all like saying, you know what, I need a timeout. And you start seeing the commercials. So I guess, does that help you in your profession when you have people that before would never talk about bad things or never things in their life that were negative and just tried to fight through it? Like, or having that out there now by people that are well known, or whether it be on social media or whatever, does that help in a positive way?
I mean, it's. I'm glad that it's happening.
Right.
I'm glad that people are talking more about mental health. I'm glad that athletes and celebrities are talking more about mental health, because even our kids now in Klinic Kids, like when I'll give them an example and I'll say, your faves, they do pace breathing, they do meditation, they do mindfulness. I was like, do you think the celebrities, musicians, and athletes, before they go out into whatever they need to do, if they're performing in front of thousands and thousands of people, that they're not nervous? They're doing some type of meditation or prayer or mindfulness practice or just a quick breath, right? They're doing something. And some of our students, our kids are like, no, they're not, right? Because they think that our athletes and our celebrities and our artists, that they're just on stage and they're great, and they are great, but there's work and practice that gets in the behind the scenes. And so I wish that more people would talk about it, because it would normalize it for our kids, right? They think, no, they're just on the stage and they're the, that was it. And everything's fine. And that was it. And it was like, if we can normalize that process for them, that would make them more open to their own experiences, because usually people right away think something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm nervous, I'm anxious, something's wrong with me, or I can't go up in front of people and speak, and something, right? It's always the attachment of something is wrong with me. And it's like, no, it's actually very normal what you're feeling and what you're experiencing. And everyone goes through it. Athletes, celebrities, non-athletes, your parents, right? And we just don't talk about it. We have to be tough, and we have to show this image of ourselves. And like, actually, to me, if you're vulnerable and you show those, like for the athletes that you talked about that like came out in the open, to me, they're strong.
Right.
They're strong because they said, hey, I'm going through this and I'm normalizing it for myself and for other people. And it's okay.
Right.
And I need a break. And that is okay. We live in a society where we have to produce, and we have to be, if you rest, it's like, oh, I wasn't productive today. Yeah. If you rest, you feel bad, right? We live in this society, and it's like, no, rest is incredibly important for us. We need to rest. We need to identify when we're feeling overworked, when we need a moment to just take a step back, right? We need, self-care is super important, and part of saying, my mental health is just not okay right now and I need to take a step back is part of your self-care.
Yeah, I wish I would have done therapy when I was younger. Like I'm in therapy now, and I just wish that when I was younger, like in my teenage years and even in my college years, as an adult, that I had somebody to talk to, just so this way that I could put things in perspective. Because like you said, especially being black, right, there's kind of like a taboo that you're not supposed to really talk to everybody, like be the tough guy, like whatever,
or the
right?
business stays in the house.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, like as I started getting older and I started seeing all my friends and stuff doing it, then it became more acceptable. And I was like, you're dumb if you don't go to therapy. That's how I feel. I'm like, there's no reason for you not to. And I tell all my students and all my kids, like, there's no shame in it. Like, we all need help at one point in time. It's just whether you're going to seek the help and get it, or you're just going to keep going down the path until you crash and burn.
Yeah. And I always put it like, don't you want to be a better version and a stronger version of yourself? Like, that's literally what we're doing.
Apparently not me.
Okay, but you have, so actually, no, I think that's so normal because you had, can I say it? Okay. You've had a poor experience in therapy.
Right.
And I want to normalize that because people have tried therapy. You get people to try to get to therapy. And then when they get to therapy, the therapist wasn't a good fit for them. And now they're like, no, thank you. Yeah. I'm not doing therapy. It doesn't work. It's not good. Right. And that happens. And that is so common, more than you think. Right. And I bet you more than enough people would say, oh, that was my experience. That was my experience. Right. And that's why I encourage, and I said it's frustrating to do this, but that's why I encourage folks to, the same way they would find a doctor, that they would find someone that's a good fit for them, that they feel comfortable with them, that they feel like this doctor can treat me, is the same way that you want to find a therapist. You want to find someone that you're connected to, someone that you feel that they would understand and get you, right? And then give it a couple sessions. And if you feel like this isn't going anywhere, I don't feel connected, leave. It's okay to fire your therapist, and it's okay to go and find someone else. Right. It might take a couple of times. It's hard. It was hard for me, right? Like to find my own therapist as well. And you just have to keep searching, and you have to keep finding someone until you're like, okay, you're a good fit.
Right. Yeah, no, that's important. And I mean, you know, just because like Cash brought up a lot of things too, and you know, us as men, and you know, that's probably the biggest, you know, stigma at all is like if you show your vulnerability, then you're considered weak. And then you got friends that like, you know, they do it in good jest or good fun. They might mess with you and that type of stuff. But it, you know, to your point earlier, like simple words, you know, even somebody messing with you, you know, it's going to stick with you, some of it, and then it like distracts you from like thinking like, okay, yeah, I need to go get help, or I need to, you know, be a better person and try to learn how to deal with that or the skills that you're teaching. So, I mean, but I think like with men, and Cash had talked about it, like especially athletes, you know, your whole identity growing up is you were the, you know, in best player in elementary school, best player in high school. You go on to college, you have a great college career, and then everybody's thinking like, oh, you should be a pro. And all of a sudden the limelight stops, your playing days stop, and now you're like, okay, was my whole life just being identified that I was a player, I was an athlete, or I was a soldier or whatever? like you're identified, and it's hard to understand when all of that stops.
Yeah.
You know, who you are as
Who
a
are
person and
you?
trying to find your identity, because that's where I think that, I know people talk about sometimes silence is good, but sometimes silence is bad, because that's when you're constantly thinking about like all the negative stuff. So, I mean, how do you deal with like that type of stuff?
I was going to say that it's something that I actually do in my therapy is I ask my clients, it's like an exercise that they do, and I ask them to answer the question, who am I? But without their professional identity, right? Without it being tied to anything. Like, I'm a mother, none of those identities, but who are you at your core? And people struggle.
Yeah.
People struggle, and they're like, what do you mean, who am I? I'm a professor, I'm a therapist. And it's like, no, those are your careers.
Right.
Those are things that you have titles for, and right? But who are you at your core? And so I would encourage everyone to practice that.
Right.
Engage in that activity and the exercise and say, who am I? And think about who you are at your core, right? Because when those things are gone, if your identity is tied to things that can be taken away, then who are you?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Right? So.
It's a really good question.
And
Who are you, Dave?
And that's why she's the smartest person in the room.
I said that, that was like, that was obvious. From the moment she said I wear many hats, and then went into like the first three, I was like, oh boy, it's gonna be tough. I was like, don't give me any homework, 'cause I'm definitely failing.
I just gave like three homework if you didn't, if you caught it, okay.
Who am I? And the breathing
and the thoughts, the reframing, challenging.
Yes. So, we have a couple more minutes left, and we're going to get to our overrated, underrated segment. But what does the future look like for you, Sireen, and where do you see yourself in 1 to 3 years? I know we talked a little bit about some of the things you're working on, but, this has been a great learning experience for me personally. But, can you just talk about where you see yourself going in the next 1 to 3 years?
One of the things that I have been thinking about lately, and what I really want to focus on, is being more like having like the things that I'm trained in, the skills that I'm trained in, the knowledge, my research. I want it to be more accessible to folks that aren't in academia, that don't only have access to me like in one-on-one therapy, right? Or my students, right? Like, I want to be able to reach more people so that they can get this information. I don't want to gatekeep the information. I do this work because I want to share it. Right. I want to share it with folks. And so one of the things that I've thought about is I'm working on a podcast myself with a friend of mine. And we want to, and I in particular want to normalize everyday life, and then talk about mental health within that everyday life. Right? So I don't want it to just be like a podcast on mental health, right? Because that also might deter some folks, like, oh, mental health, like, I don't need to hear this. But it's like, no, what is it like navigating being a boss? What is it like navigating, like, being a parent? What is it like navigating X, Y, and Z? And then talk about the everyday about that and how mental health comes up in those moments. Or, this is for everyone, what is it like navigating our day-to-day with the world's on fire? Right? Literally on fire. Yes. What does that mean for us? And I've heard folks say like, oh, we have to like focus and when I heard that, I said, no, the way we're feeling is normal. It is an appropriate reaction. What we're feeling every day, if we're waking up and we're worried and we're like, what in the news, and you're looking at social media and you're like, what is happening out here? What you're feeling is an appropriate response to what we're experiencing. So I want to normalize that in through podcasts, through social media. I want people to have access to that information. Also, I want to provide more access around strategies and skills. I want people to have more access around structural trauma, the idea of structural trauma, so we're not thinking something's wrong with us internally, right? And my work around the structural violence on the school-prison nexus, I think, is so incredibly important for people to really have access to, so that we can reframe our thinking and start to understand like lack of access to housing stability and food insecurity and after-school programs and all these things that should be our basic needs. They really impact a lot of our outcomes. Yes. And so thinking about the work that we do, especially for therapists and social workers and anyone that's interested in that work, to really reframe their thinking. And my students really enjoy my classes. And so I was like, well, why can't I provide, I'm a race scholar, I'm a critical race scholar, why can't I provide some of this information to people that aren't in my classroom, right? I want it to be digestible, and I wanted it to be accessible.
So yeah, so you brought up some things that like we refer to it as like social determinants of health, right? Like you look at the healthcare world, people that live in certain geographical locations are more apt to have negative outcomes, you know, in healthcare in general, but also with mental health. So, you know, you touched on some points that actually I work in that space a little bit. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so that's good. Social media, just real quick, and then we'll go. I mean, I am such a big believer now, and it could be wrong, but like no kid should have a smartphone until like they're like 30.
30. Try to make that happen.
No, I know. But you know, but I think parents feel pressure to like keep up with
Yeah.
the Joneses, so to speak.
Yeah.
So like, you know, if Jennifer and Bobby, you know, have smartphones and I don't, like then I'm missing out on stuff. So like, how do you deal with social media? Because it's so prevalent in our society today, and in sports. I mean, recruiting now is all social media.
Social media.
And you know, all of that. So how does that impact what you're doing?
Social media to me is like a double-edged sword, right? Double-edged sword, because it can open so many opportunities. You get access in ways that we've never had access before, right? We get our information in ways we've never had information before, right? We're not limited to whatever the news wants to tell us. Now we can go on social media and really see what's happening globally, right? And you can put your stuff out there, right?
Right.
You can share your information and you can become accessible, right? So it can be such a blessing. On the other end, right, social media can really mess with your mental health. You're talking about kids having access. That's probably most of it, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
kids having access to social media at such a young age will really mess with what they see
Right.
and their idea of what's perfect.
Right.
Right? So now we have the risk of our kids scrolling through social media and saying like, wow, this person has such a perfect life. This person has such a, perfect relationship, such a perfect home or whatnot. And that's something we really need to talk about, because people, when they post, they only post, they're curating their lives for you, right? They're curating an image. And so you only see the best of their life.
Right.
Right? And so it impacts adults too, but especially kids, because their brain doesn't fully develop, right? Till 25. So they're looking and they're like, it can really impact their self-esteem. It can impact their own relationships. It can impact the way they show up in the world. It can impact a lot. I mean, suicide rates are high. Depression is high. Anxiety is high right now, right? It's really bad. And I think social media does play a role in it. But at the same time, they can have more access to resources. So it's like, how do we need a balance.
Yes.
And we need to normalize how influencers curate their image, to like talk about that, so that people understand this isn't their perfect life. They're actors. Let's call them actors.
Right. That's a valid
and
point,
and this is what they're presenting to you. But when the camera is off, they are going through life the same way we're going through life.
Mm-hmm.
So if Dave puts out that video of him blocking my shot, that's AI generated.
That's a different story. AI is a whole different story.
Right.
Well, I'm just throwing that out there just in case. But Dave, you see it, right? Coaching high school kids. I mean, everything. And we've had some guests. AJ talked about like everybody wants to be the next TikTok superstar, dribbling the ball, doing drills. But they really try to use it. And to your point, there's the benefit of it because there's access to so much. But then there's also the negative stuff. So finding that balance is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a really quick story. Like, I used to manage an artist, and he used to get a lot of love online, but he would have thousands and thousands of likes, but it would be one person that said something about this person, and he's like, "You see that?" I'm like, "Bro, there's like a million other views that's good, but you guys one, and this is the one that you." And I'm talking about like going down a rabbit hole with it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like.
Yeah.
That's the power of what people can say with words, and again, just the internet alone, it drove my man mad, because he was like, he was always
obsessive.
concentrating on the good and wanting everything to be perfect, and and life is not perfect at the end of the day.
No.
So
And people will not like you.
Yeah.
People will disagree with what you have to say, and that's okay, right? And being okay with that, I think that that's why we need to have more conversations, especially with our youth, to say, hey, social media is fine, but let's talk about this and this and this, so that you are going to get those comments where people dislike you. It's not a reflection of who you are. Don't internalize it. We're back to where we started.
Yeah, no, full circle.
Yeah.
That's true.
And it's just even with my own kid, like, she goes to Cardinal Spellman, and I'm pretty sure there's, things on there where, kids are saying stuff online. Like, I've heard it all, right?
Yeah.
So, I try to navigate it. And that's really one of the reasons why I became a coach at Cardinal Spellman, so I can kind of watch what went on with my daughter and everything at the schools. But, now she's older, she can fend for herself. But in the beginning, I was worried just because the internet is a beast.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it happens.
The internet, but these are people that are hiding behind
Yeah.
computers and laptops and
Yeah.
cell phones and right? And so we
Yeah.
have to build a strong mental block
Yeah.
to those people because they don't know us and we don't know them. And block, right?
So before we get to our last segment, underrated or overrated, just let's circle back. Punchline of this is just tell people like how they can get help and, just some skills that they can take away, just for everyday use.
Yeah. Okay. I love this.
All right.
Ask the therapist this question. So, what can we do? So, I'm thinking of like some free options, right? Something that we can all just do on our own. We've talked about a couple. So, I mentioned endorphins earlier.
Yes.
Endorphins are super. They release their chemicals that naturally release in our brain, right, in our body, and they promote mood, like a mood boost. They decrease stress, like especially around cortisol.
Right.
And we can get endorphins released in our body in so many ways. Moving your body around is a big one. So like you all are athletes, so you do that, right? So making sure that you continue and everyone continues to do something. If you're not an athlete, that's okay. You can dance, you can do yoga, you can go for a walk. 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes will release endorphins for you, right? And the other thing that you can do, we talked about laughing. I love going to comedy shows. So like that also is a natural way to release endorphins. You can sleep and rest. I know that sounds so simple. So simple, sleep and rest,
It's
right?
hard though, yeah, it's hard.
But think about when you haven't gotten proper sleep. You're so reactive. You're irritable. It's true though, right?
No, the reason why this is so funny because my wife, she's like, I haven't had a good night's sleep in like so long, and it's just like hearing you say this is like I hear this every day. Like I haven't gotten a good night's sleep. Like I'm just trying to, and
it's like it all makes sense now.
Well, it's a natural part of the body, right?
Yeah.
Like you get irritable and you react, and you it's harder for you to relax. You feel more anxious, right? All these mental health things that you experience, a lot of it stems from that piece, right? Then we were talking about pace breathing.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be pace breathing. It can be any type of breathing. There's a lot of different ways that you can breathe, but literally putting that in practice. So I talk a lot about meditation, and I know a lot of people say meditation is hard. And it's true. It's very hard because our minds are running a mile a minute. So one thing that I would say is 60 seconds to 2 minutes in the morning or at night, put an alarm on your phone for 60 seconds to 2 minutes, right? Maybe start with the 2 minutes, and if it feels like too hard, do 60 seconds. And literally close your eyes before you start your day or before you go to bed, whichever it is. And you're gonna close your eyes, and you're gonna incorporate the breathing with the meditation, because meditation by itself sometimes is really hard for people. So you're gonna close your eyes, and you're gonna take a deep breath in, and then you're gonna hold your breath, right? And then you're gonna do a big release. Try it for 60 seconds, again, to a minute, and put it in practice. And then it can build and build, and you can get to 5 minutes, you can get to 10 minutes. But that will start your day right, or it'll end your day right, if you need it. So that's something that people can do. The other thing I would say, and I've shared this, but I want to emphasize it, is really pay attention to the way that you're talking to yourself. Really pay attention, because again, you are with yourself 24 hours a day. And so start paying attention. You don't have to get your PhD to be a researcher. Be your own researcher.
Right.
Identify when you're feeling anxious. Identify when you're feeling stressed. I have my own clients. They have their phones with them all the time. So I tell them, pull out a notepad, create a notepad in your phone, and pay attention. Say, okay, I'm feeling really anxious right now. I'm in a space. This is what I'm feeling. I say, write down the time, write down when it's happening, what's happening around, write down the thoughts that you're having in that moment. Take data on yourself. Right? So that you can help yourself understand this happens only in the mornings. This happens when I'm about to go in the class. This happens when I'm about to go on a podcast, right? Like whatever the case may be, but pay attention, collect data on yourself so that you can help yourself now identify this is when I'm feeling most anxious. This is what I'm saying to myself, and this is how I need to address it, right? You can do it in therapy too, but if you want to work on yourself in ways like to start paying attention, that's a step that you can take to do that, right?
Fantastic.
And last thing, I'm going to end with one of my favorite quotes by Nuria Wahid. She says, feel it. The thing that you don't want to feel it and be free. And that's one of my favorite quotes because as a society, we tend to numb.
Yes.
We tend to put Band-Aids. We tend to, and always people do things because they don't want to talk about what it is. They store it. They say, that happened to me when I was a kid. I'm fine. I don't need to talk about it. We numb, and then it comes out in different ways. And so I really encourage us to feel it, that the thing that we are afraid to feel, nothing's going to happen to us, right? Allow yourself to feel it so that eventually you'll be free from whatever that emotion is that you're so afraid of that you've been holding on to.
That's excellent advice. All right, so we're going to lighten it up for a second here. So
Okay.
Overrated, underrated, we basically say one thing, and then you just tell us whether it's overrated or underrated.
Okay.
Dave, do you want to start off?
Sure. Therapy. I got you, Ray.
You can't ask. You can't ask a therapist that. Underrated.
Okay.
All right.
Underrated, 100%.
I was gonna.
Yeah, I know. I beat you.
All right. Athletics, sports.
Is there just rated? It's good?
Yeah, you can say it's.
Yeah, it's good.
All right, it's good. It's not overrated. It's not underrated. It's where
Yeah.
it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's good.
All right. Dave.
What's a good one? Help me out, Ray. This is a tough one right here.
Well, I was going to say therapy. That I already
So
refused.
yours.
Because I want to make it something that she can come relate to, right? So, come back to me, Ray. Let me think.
All right. I'm going to, so I guess overrated or underrated critical skills that you've been going over tonight. Overrated or underrated?
Underrated. So underrated. Because as adults, we're still learning them.
Right.
Yeah, so definitely underrated. Yeah.
I'm stuck, Ray.
All right. Obviously, I'll help. Dave, you'll see Dave in a few minutes start pace breathing.
Yeah,
Dave,
right.
start pace breathing. Don't let the negative thoughts that you can't come up with any thoughts really, hinder you from coming up with a thought.
You got it, Dave. You got it. Positive affirmations.
Yeah,
All right,
I can
I'll
do
take
this.
it,
I can do this.
All right. While you're figuring out that stuff over here, I'm just going to run through another wall. Cash. Overrated, underrated.
Underrated.
All right.
Cash, overrated or underrated? That's a funny one. Right
I
there.
love you, Cash. You know that. Just need to get you on the court more. I need a big man. Set a screen on some people. All right, last one, Dave. Come on, you got one.
Last
Breathe.
one. Breathe. All right.
You can do this. You can do it, Dave.
Why can't I think of
I
anything?
have one. Can I share
Yeah,
one?
please.
Please.
Help him out.
Mental health advice from non-clinicians on social media.
would- you know what?
Overrated.
That was gonna be my next question.
I was literally.
She beat me to it.
I have it written down right here.
Overrated, because people are out here diagnosing narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder and all these things, and I'm like, no, that's not.
Well,
That's not correct.
I know we're supposed to end, but just real quick. Go ahead.
I do have one. I got
Let's go.
one.
This is going to be good. Please.
Live versus on-screen. What do you call it? Therapy.
Oh, good one.
You mean
Because-
like in person?
Yeah, in person.
Or virtual?
Yeah.
Really good one.
Yeah. Thank you, Ray.
Only took 72 minutes, but it's all right.
Okay. They both have their pros and cons.
Okay.
The pros, in person, there's nothing like in person, right? There's nothing like in person at all.
Unless it's the wrong person.
Unless it's the wrong person. Correct. But some people's schedules, it becomes really difficult to drive 40 minutes out or 30 minutes out and have the session and then come back, right? So what virtual has done, teletherapy has done, is allow folks to schedule them in between their day and not go anywhere. And we've seen more consistency with clients showing up to therapy in virtual, in a telehealth, more than in person, because it's accessible now, right? So both.
Yeah.
Like there's pros and cons.
So overrated, underrated, or it's where it's supposed to be?
It's great. I think yeah,
So it's underrated.
it's where it's supposed to be. I think those that feel comfortable with telehealth will do it, and those that are comfortable with only in person will do that.
Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Serene Irsheid. Puentes.
Puentes, you got it.
Working
Thank
on
you
that
so
all
much
night.
for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I know this was a little different, but we've been talking about this so much with a lot of people that have joined in season 1 that having an expert like you on here is fantastic. And hopefully our audience, takes to it, and we can just build upon what you and Cash and Dave and Juan are all doing with Clinic Kids. So thank you very much for your time. We were talking earlier before you arrived that we wanted to also give and I'm going to let Dave do it because it's Dave's friend, but Clinic Kids in the world had a huge loss this week. So Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we had lost one of the greats in the game, man. Lawrence Moten was part of Clinic Kids, and so when I finally got to meet him at Clinic Kids like 2 years ago, this guy showed me like so much love. He had open arms, told us all his Jordan stories, and he was just so humble. Like that's the one thing that really stuck out to me. You get those people where it's cliche, oh, he was a humble guy. Like, nah, this guy was really, really humble. Like he would tell us stories like how he was making millions, right? And then he would tell us how he was in the clubs taking pictures for a job. And it didn't matter to him. It was just that he loved what he was doing. So money never really meant anything to him, which was one of the things that kind of really stuck out about me, because when somebody's that high, you kind of be like, well, you can get back there. He didn't really have no urge to. He really just wanted to help kids, and that was his main purpose in life, was just to help kids and to pour into kids, and even to pour into people like myself, because again, I was 49, 48 years old when I took that picture with him, and I was cheesing like a little kid because he was like one of my idols. Like I was just like, yo, this is Lawrence Moten. I get to tell my boys like, yeah, I just spoke to Lawrence the other day. Like, we was talking, and it was just, a big loss for the Clinic Kids, for Syracuse. He was from Maryland, so we had a lot of people on my team that kind of knew him just because of, just basketball. But I just wanted to give my respects and just let everybody know what that guy meant to me. He was a really big part of Clinic Kids, and he will be missed, and rest in peace.
Yeah, and I think Juan's going to put together a really nice piece for that in Clinic Kids.
And even knowing him outside, like I've met him at Clinic Kids, but I didn't know him, through basketball or anything like that. And same thing like you were saying, like he was so humble, rest his soul and rest in paradise. He was so humble, and he loved the kids, but he also treated the adults, right, his colleagues, in the same light. And always, whenever I would see him in Syracuse, he would show so much love, right?
Always.
You would feel like when you walked into the room and he walked into the room, you would feel like all the attention was on you, right? He was like, hey, how are you doing? Like he really was invested and interested in how your day was and how your week was, right? And he would also, you would see that with the kids. You would see he was really good with high schoolers, right? He was so loved. And he did such, his connection with the kids and his engagement it speaks for itself.
He made everybody feel like family the first 5 minutes that you spoke to him. And we was talking about that. So we had like a little ceremony on Clinic Kids last night where we was all just sharing our great stories about him. And the one common thread about him was that he was just so humble, and he showed so many people so much love, and that when he did speak to you, you felt like he was family. Like it wasn't like he was a stranger. Like he really genuinely cared about you. Which was, as a stranger, it's kind of hard. But being who he was and being that way, it just made it, all so better when I got to finally meet him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously a blessing to all of you,
Yeah.
everybody he came in contact with. So we'll just leave it there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a great
for
way
sure.
to end it.
Yeah,
May
thank you.
he rest in peace. And to his family, our prayers and thoughts are with you. And
Yeah.
just he was a great person and great to watch on TV because that's how I knew him. So, well, thank you everybody.
Yep.
We'll see you next time on Underrated. Appreciate it.